Hello, potatoes.
Okay, guys, what's up? My name is Daniel, and this is my friend Antonio
From Devaro Gaming.
Yeah, go check his channel. It'll be in the description below. Today, we went ahead and, I had him specifically play the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X back-to-back. Had him try out a few games, and I figured he would be a good test subject, if you will, on, how to see if there's a huge difference between the two.
Because I don't play the Xboxes all that much, or rarely at all, so this was a good back-to-back experience for me and him, just to see if the graphical fidelity and crispness of resolution and whatnot.
We learned the hard way
that older games like Xbox One and Xbox 360, they're all just game boosted to high hell that you just can't tell.
Yeah, if you're getting any of these new Xboxes to play old Xbox games,
A Series S would be just fine.
Yeah. It wasn't until we got into the optimized games that there was a discrepancy.
The first game we played was a game called Gungrave Gore. And upon starting out, the first playthrough was the S. And I didn't know, we did a blind test for that. So I didn't know what console I was playing. I had to guess. Right. But upon playing Gungrave, we'll pop up some video right here. And it was a little more blurry on the character's design and some of the details in his clothing, and I feel like the color saturation of the game was a little darker. Because when we went
on the S,
because when we went to the X, the red in the Gungrave's jacket was much more, and there was a cross on his back that I could see the cross more clearly on his clothing. And when we did movement, there wasn't as much movement blur.
Right. And then the second game we played was
Mortal Shell.
Mortal Shell, yeah.
Enhanced edition. And so that one, it turns out he started me on the X. Again, I was blinded when he was swapping things or not swapping things, whatnot. So it was completely unknown to me what version I was playing. And it was hard to tell, because it was clean, it was crisp, the water effects were nice. We'll again post a little more gameplay right here between us. And it wasn't till I played the S version, and I could see the water effect just wasn't as crisp as the X. And then also we saw the same cutscene. He'll do a side by side, and you could see through his ribs. And And part of the audio that sadly got cut was, again, on the character's design around his crotch area. There's this bulge, so guy be packing. But on the X, it was a lot pointier, and on the S, it was more smooth, rounded, and
I think overall, I think what is really noticeable between the two is that it's just the Series S is in general more soft. I think everything is just a softer image. Obviously it's not pushing the higher resolution. I think what the bulk of everything was, because it's not like the Series S wasn't playable.
No,
by any means.
It was still smooth in most game. I couldn't really tell any motion blur between the two of them, especially when doing the dodges and the fighting and the gameplay. It was very smooth. There's only very small graphical details that unless you're nitpicking at, you would never notice.
Yeah, but to be fair, Mortal Shell is kind of an old game that was, kind of remastered, I guess you could say. Right, it is the enhanced edition. But when we move on to the next game, High on Life, I think that was probably the biggest, which I started him off on the Series S version for that one. And
it was the graphical fidelity, unless you were to really get up close to the object and really pay attention, you could see some pixelated fuzziness. But because I did it where I crouched and looked at this table, and I could see it just barely. And because the S is a slightly less powerful machine, there wasn't as many AI walking around.
Yeah, that was the first thing he noticed, was that just the overall population. It was a lot less people, but then you noticed the boxes.
Yeah, there's these trash boxes, and on the S, they just look like cardboard boxes. They didn't have any mold or any mold essentially.
Yeah.
It just had there was these black smudges on the X version. where like it looked like the boxes had been outside in the rain, had like maybe molded a little bit, or just got like this dirt on it. And instantly, like the lights looked more clear. Like if you got close, like if you were sitting there looking at the lights from both from a distance, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. But getting up close and like looking at them in like intensely, you could see the shapes of the S version. They kind of just looked like a light, while the X looked like a light bolt of light coming off it or coming out of it.
I think to wrap things up, it is safe to assume that if you care about, as I mentioned in my last video, if you value having native 4K, if you value the disk drive, I think that's probably one of the bigger things there. Yeah, then I think that the Series X is the way to go. But if you're just looking to, get the Series S as your only console, maybe you primarily play something like on the Nintendo Switch. I've said this to him countless times. If you got $500, I would find more value in getting a Series S and a Switch Lite versus just spending the money on a PS5 or a Series X, because you get such a wide range of gaming done, especially with Game Pass. You don't have to buy really any games on the Series S, and you just play free-to-play stuff. And then the Switch offers you so much there, right? So these budget systems have their place, and just because they are not for you, I think it's a little, messed up to say, oh, it's trash, it's not worth it, or whatever, because there's a lot of people on the planet, and there's a lot of people that don't have the money to shell out